We'll be starting up in about 1 minute on Zoom. Okay, good morning, and welcome to our Town Hall on Shared Services. I'm David Orr. I'm the director here at the Cornell Local Roads program, the LTAP Center here in New York, and welcome. We are on Zoom and on Facebook Live. If you have questions, please put them in the chat pod in Zoom or the comment section in Facebook Live. We'll get the questions over here. We have some preset questions to get everything started, but that's how that will work. Just as a quick reminder for those who've been on these before, the chat's been disabled, but you can raise your hand if we ask a question. We're looking for an opinion, and again, you can put your questions in the Q&A box down at the bottom. Our panel today, we have 6 people who've agreed to join us, and we have Rich, whoops, went too far. We have Rich Benjamin with the town of Thompson, Gary Thorington with the town of Windham, Tim Hens with Genesee County, and the past president of the National Association of County Engineers, Skip Vezzetti from Rockland County, and Andrew Cahout with the Village of Scotia, and Rob Bitch with the New York State Department of Transportation. So if each of you wants to say hello or anything you want to start with, otherwise we'll get into our questions. Any of you want to say anything? I see Skip's still trying to connect to his audio, but nope. Okay. So we're going to be talking about shared services. So let's start with one that we get asked quite often. This is long before COVID came around. We got asked this a lot. Who do you share with, and what lessons did you learn the hard way that others should hopefully not learn that way? So who wants to start? I'll let anybody go first, randomly this time.
David, I'll chime in.
Thanks, Tim.
We share with pretty much everybody. We share with all the towns and villages in the city of Batavia. It's within our county. We actually share outside of our county with other counties. We've even shared with towns outside of our county. Usually the bordering towns. Everything from equipment, materials, labor, just depends on what you need and who has it, or what you have and what they need. But probably if I'm thinking about things I've learned the hard way is not all equipment is equal in terms of how it's been maintained. So we're always we are now cautious about specific towns that might have a piece of equipment that's prone to breaking. We always stand by the rule that you break it, you fix it kind of thing. So we know there's some equipment that will break when we use it, and we sometimes look other places for equipment. So I would say that's the lesson I've learned the hard way.
Well, that's a pretty important one. You certainly don't want to get a piece of equipment that doesn't work for you. Yeah. Gary, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure, David. Excuse me. That'll be great. So we share mainly with neighboring townships and our county highway. Our county is set up in 2 different regions, as a valley region and a mountaintop. So typically we'll share mostly with mountaintop towns, but we'll go elsewhere if needed. Probably the hardest lesson I've learned, I think, was a manpower issue during a snowstorm. Neighboring town had 50% of their workforce out with an illness. So we sent a driver over. Lesson learned was, once you deploy one of your people to another town, that leaves you one short, which means everybody else has to do right? 25% more work. So definitely don't regret it. Would do it again in a heartbeat if needed. Is just a fact that you have to be aware of, that you can actually short yourself a little bit when there's a major event going. So it's just something you have to coach your help with prior to, and be aware of yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Andrew, how about in the Village of Scotia?
So in the village, the main group we share with is the town of Glenville, which is where the village is located in the town. Also our county. Schenectady County is a pretty small county, so just to the north of us is Saratoga County, which has a very robust county association, our town highway association, which actually I'm a member of. So some of the towns and villages in the southern part of that county we do some work with, which has worked out well. It kind of opens up our pool of who we can reach out to. Just like the first, I think it was Tim who went first, said, with equipment, one of the things we found, we have a small paver, and we lent that out, and we did some training on it with them. There were some issues with some of how it was maintained. It wasn't necessarily negligent, but maybe we didn't make our expectations clear on how it should have been cleaned or maintained while they had it. So that was the first time you do that, and then the second time you try to make sure that doesn't you avoid that for the next time, or we end up with a lot of work on our end when we get that piece of equipment back.
Okay. Rich, what about the town of Thompson?
We've been very successful over the years. We share with everyone.
Yeah, I know. I see you posting pictures on Facebook all the time.
Yeah, and we've done some really large projects and just moving equipment because one town has a low boy. And the only bad experience we ever had, we had a long-term agreement with the county for salt. We used their salt shed, and we just felt like we were always being shorted in that arrangement. So we eventually built our own shed.
Well, that's what you got to do if you got to do. So, Skip, are you on yet? Nope, we're not hearing Skip. How about state, Rob?
Hey, David. Yeah, we get insured services agreements with all sorts of entities across the state, towns, villages, counties, universities, even other state agencies, for all types of things, labor, materials, equipment, salt storage. And we've had a lot of success, but similar to Tim, I think the equipment was really the only issue where you could say we had to do some learning with there. And the one thing that we try and do now to help avoid that is we always make sure that an operator is sent with that equipment, whether it's our equipment that's being sent somewhere else, or whether it's someone else sending equipment to us. We always want to make sure an operator that's used to that piece of equipment goes with it, so we can help ensure that it's going to be taken care of reasonably well.
Or at least it's taken off the same way it was in the past.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. I can understand that.
We've adopted that same practice too, Dave. Okay. There's usually an operator tied with that piece of equipment.
Yeah, and that makes sense, especially if it's a specialty piece. But even trucks, you don't want to have somebody flipping the wrong levers. That gets you in big trouble. So, Rich, Skip, have you been able to catch on? Nope. Rich, so have things changed in terms of what you shared with in all your years?
A little bit, because sometimes one of the towns didn't replace a piece of equipment that we would share, but basically it's been basically the same. And we used to we send our sweeper to a neighboring town and sweep for him every year, and then we either in return get his bucket truck with his 3 guys, or we used to get his paver, but then we bought our own paver since then. So yeah, things change. They're fluid, but and since we had our paver, we paid for other municipalities. So it all works out.
Okay. So let's flip on to the next question. We can always catch back up with Skip once we figure out his audio thing. So what is your greatest success story regarding shared services? What's the thing you've done with other agencies that you're either most proud of or you thought was the best bang for the buck for your own agency or even the neighboring agencies? So Tim, you don't get to go first this time. Who else wants to go first?
Yeah, David, this is Gary. I'll take a stab at that.
Sure.
So I think probably my greatest success story thus far is probably the day that being good to others pays you back. In March of 2010, we had a blizzard hit our area with about 8 feet of snow in 3 days, which is unusual. And like I said, our county's cut into a couple sections, so the valley towns with elevations of about 500 feet got an inch or two. And then we get up to about 2,000 to 3,500 feet up here. As you can see, there was a major difference. So what we found with shared services was all the valley equipment were anxious to come see 8 feet of snow and go to work. So we gladly took every resource that the valley had to offer in our region. And if it wasn't for them, it just wouldn't happen. But I got to give credit to the relationships that shared services build, both with employees and superintendents as well. The more you do together, the easier it is when things go bad to rely on other people and know that they'll be there for you. So, you know, a year and a half after that, we had a flood hit us, and we had of course, a state of emergency. So that opened the door up to other county agencies coming to help us, different townships out of our regular agreement realm. So again, it's just the relationship that you build with each other as we go through this. You know, there's going to come a day in your town or county or state or whatever level you're at that you're going to have it handed to you, and it's really nice to know that you've got friends in the business.
Okay, good. I like that one. Okay. Andrew, you want to go next?
Sure. So, you know, one of the things I agree with Gary is that the idea of when it comes back to you, it feels good. And one of the things I did early on when I started was I started an informal tracking of things that we did for other municipalities and things that they did for us. And it wasn't in terms of you know, recouping money or you know, keeping tabs, but also it was a good history to kind of show the things you've done. And, you know, I try to make an effort to make sure that I'm always in the positive on that, to, you know, that we've been there for people, being sort of the small, you know, being a village as opposed to a town or a county. You know, we need to prove why we're here and you know, that we're important and that we matter. And you know, again, that idea that because we've done things for other people, you could make a phone call and they wouldn't hesitate to help if they can. That always feels good. Last year with the town of Glenville, we tried doing some joint milling and paving. We rented equipment together. We ran crews that were half from the village and half from the town, and we're able to mill and pave, you know, with 2 separate crews together at the same time, which we never would have been able to do on our own. And
Cool.
It was done in a way that, you know, we did a couple days in the village, then we moved to the town. It wasn't keeping track of down to the hour, but, you know, relatively, everything was relatively even. And we got a lot done that we wouldn't have been able to do ourselves. And honestly, the town probably wouldn't have been able to do themselves. And, you know, they all worked together, which worked out real well. That one felt pretty good.
Cool. Let's see here if I can unmute Skip and get him into the game here. No, he's not unmuting for some reason. Up, there he is. Skip, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Skip.
Oh, finally. Hey, there we go. Yeah, we had a little audio problem.
That's
here.
okay. So Skip, we're talking about lessons learned. We already did the one on the lesson learned that you learned the hard way.
Right.
And then we're talking about your greatest success stories. So I'll let you answer both of them if you want.
Well, we really haven't had too many bad experiences, quite frankly. Rockland's a small county. We have only 5 towns, and well, although we have about 12 villages, but for over 20 years when I first got here, we initially had intermunicipal agreements for shared services. So we've been doing that for years, and we have a good working relationship with all our towns. So I don't think we've had any problems. I heard a little earlier about the problem with we have loaned equipment on a couple early on and had some problem with the maintenance on it. But our agreements say, hey, if you break it, you fix it. So we haven't had any really severe problems with that. They clean up, like we have we've loaned our paver out. But probably our best experience is that for all this time, we do all the line striping for all the towns and villages in the county. They reimburse us for our manpower and their share of the maintenance over the year. We do that on a per diem basis, and they provide manpower. They buy the paint, they buy the beads, and we apply them. So that's been really successful, and it's popular with our legislature too. They know we're doing those services for them. We have a lot of large equipment, excavators, bulldozers, graders that we do loan out on occasion, but not that often, quite frankly. Since we've gone to this shared services agreement, which we based on our previous agreements, we found that we haven't had any problems.
Okay.
So it's been pretty good.
Okay, cool. Rob, what's your greatest success story?
Oh, Dave, that's really tough to point out because we do so many different shared services agreement all over the place, and really they're all success stories. But I would say the greatest things we've done are similar to what Gary mentioned with respect to emergency situations or possibly urgent situations. Whether there's a significant snowstorm, or maybe there's a barn fire somewhere, or there's a culvert that gets washed out. We have done using shared services agreements some emergency repairs overnight to reopen a roadway, and it's because we had those agreements in place that allows us to come to quick aid and to do that. So I'd say those are our greatest success stories.
Okay, Tim, what about up in Genesee County?
Well, we've been doing, shared services has kind of been ingrained in our county for a long time. I've been here 23 years. We've been doing it the whole time I've been here, and it's been done a long time before that. The normal equipment and stuff like that is pretty common, but probably our biggest success story is we started in 1999, manufacturing all of the road signs for all the towns and villages. We have a pretty robust sign shop here at the highway garage for the county, and we can make everything from banners to your standard stop sign right on through door decals, truck decals, and things like that. So we actually manufacture at no cost all of the signs that any of the municipalities need, any of the agencies need in the county, and even surrounding counties come to us too. Orleans comes to us. We get some of the towns in Wyoming County that come to us for signs, but we make them and provide them. They still have to put them up in the right place on the right pole safely. But that's probably our biggest success story. And I would say the next biggest success story is shortly after the tank regulations changed in '98. The city of Batavia was looking at having to build a new fuel farm, and rather than them building a brand new fuel farm a mile away from where we are, we just replaced ours at the county, made it a little bit bigger. And we have a fuel farm that services pretty much all of the municipal agency type governments within the town of Batavia, city of Batavia boundaries. So it's kind of a county operated fuel farm. We sell all the products to the various towns. It's not really shared services per se, but it's did save the city of Batavia about $500,000 when it came time to replace a fuel farm. So those probably are two biggest things.
Cool. And Rich?
Yeah, Dave. So probably the one that stands out to me, we had a tremendous ice storm one time, and we had trees just all over town, and it was localized, so the other towns didn't have that. And at the time, we only had a small 13-inch chipper, and the other towns sent in their big chippers for a whole month and cleaned up everything. And that would have took us, 2 or 3 months on our own, even if we would have rented equipment, and it would have affected our paving season. So the cost in that case was fairly low to the other towns, but it saved, you couldn't even count the savings for us because it would have disrupted our whole season. And then, years later, one of the same towns had a huge wind shear come through, and we did the same for them. So that was a great success. Money wise, we provide the fuel for the village and the fire department. So that was probably one of the bigger long-term savings plans that we've been successful with.
Well,
Dave?
yeah, go ahead.
I probably forgot probably our biggest success is, and I don't know why I forgot it, but earlier this year, our legislature approved our new highway facility, and we awarded the bid for it, and we're actually starting construction right now, and that's partially due to the support of all our local town and village superintendents. One of some of the aspects that we added to the facility is we're going to be putting in a county, what we call a countywide or almost a regional salt storage facility. We're going to have a 10,000-ton salt storage facility because several of the towns and villages don't have the storage capacity for a year's worth of salt. And, what it gets like once you get into January and February, getting salt delivered down here can be a real problem. So they'll be able to put in a supply of salt, moderate amount of salt, so that they won't run out during the year, and that's everybody's very happy about that. Hopefully, within the next year, we'll have that up and going. So I think that'll be a big benefit to all the towns and villages and the county.
Well, when you get it done and we're able to travel freely again, maybe we'll come down and take a tour of it.
Oh, you're going to love this place.
Okay, sounds good. So we've already talked a lot about this question, what activities and work you already do, but are there things you're doing that you haven't mentioned yet, or are there particular activities that you think you'd like to try, or you see others doing that you think is really a good example of shared services? Anybody can start.
I'll go. I'll start. This is Andrew.
Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, again, in the village, we don't have, we don't do a lot of mowing, like the towns do. So we don't have a roadside mower or anything. But again, the town of Glenville does, and we've got it set up where, they basically just, it's just part of their normal route, and it's always, paid back in a way. They've had our paver again for a couple of weeks. Our roller, things like that. So, again, just kind of keeping things fair, because the village isn't in a position to buy one of those roadside mowers for the very few places that have to be done. So I think that's a good example. We've got a pretty strong leak detection program that my water operators use. So we'll do that for the town if they've got a water break or a suspected water break, but you need to know where it, try to find where it is. We've even done that for some of the municipalities in Saratoga County as well, just to, again, try to spread it around. It's something that we're pretty good at. It's a good piece of equipment. So why not use it and make sure everybody can benefit from it. One thing I guess I'd love to try to figure out is tree work, because it's obviously for everybody, it's constant. And I don't have the budget or manpower or training to have a tree crew and the equipment to do it. But I do feel like it could be something within the county that maybe we could try to get towards, because I know I'm not the only one that thinks that. So
Okay,
that's
cool.
something I'd like to try to work on.
That is something we do in our county. We have a tree crew. We have a 75-foot bucket truck, stump grinder, kind of the whole setup. But we do go out. We spend a lot of time in the villages, quite honestly, removing trees, grinding stumps. But we do that for our towns. That's really one of the main ways we get back to our towns with all the trucking they provide to us in the summertime. Is our tree crew is going pretty much from the fall until the spring, doing other people's work.
Yeah,
Okay.
same as
That's great.
Tim. We have a full-time tree crew, and with I think ours is an 80-footer, but it's a brand new one. We just got a year ago, and they're going 12 months a year. I mean, you can't keep up with it hardly, but especially the villages, they don't have the equipment.
Right.
We have 3 towns that have some smaller bucket trucks, but if they get into trouble, our guys are well trained, and we do. I put on a class for chainsaw safety every 2 years. We put on 3 classes. One is for basic chainsaw. One is a second one is for more advanced, for guys doing climbing and use up in the buckets, and the third one is for maintaining your chainsaws and your chippers. So I have a fellow come in who does a lot of work for the state and the state parks state parks, and trains them. So that's been well received by all the towns and villages.
So Skip or Tim, when you guys do that, are the towns or villages paying you for that?
Well, generally speaking, if it's just it would depend on on the size of the project.
Okay.
I have to say, we don't charge for equipment. I discussed it with the county executive early on. I said, listen, our equipment, we feel that all the taxpayers in the county paid for the equipment, so we don't charge for equipment. We will, if it's extensive work, like even with our line striping, they have to pay an hourly rate for them and for labor. But the equipment we don't charge for, so they're getting a good break there. And
I like that idea that, I mean, basically the people already bought the equipment anyway.
Well, that's how I viewed it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't tell other people what to do, but we discussed it, and everybody in the county pays for it, so we don't charge the towns and villages for an equipment rate. So. But we just charge for the labor.
Tim, how about you?
Yeah, we don't charge for the equipment ever. When we do tree removals and stuff like that, we don't charge anybody anything. Again, we rely heavily. The county doesn't have a lot of trucks. We have a lot of specialized equipment, pavers and tree trucks and shoulder machines and things like that the towns and villages don't have. So we rely heavily more so on them in the summertime for trucking. We kind of recoup our tree crew costs through the trucking they provide to us in the summertime on our big paving jobs and things like that. So it's kind of a back and forth. But I agree with Skip that we have the same mentality that village residents and town residents are also county residents. And as long as the services aren't being continually directed to one municipality over and over again, I think it's fair that we get around to all the residents in the county and provide the same service. I don't think the taxpayers care which pocket their money gets pulled out of, their village pocket or their county pocket. At the end of the day, they just want the tree gone.
Right.
Tim, I'm sure you get we have a couple of municipalities that, for whatever reason, one for instance, this year their village board decided they didn't want to replace their sweepers, so they came to us and thought we should sweep all their streets once a week. And I said, it's not going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, if they were in a bind or something, that's one thing. Just because you don't want to buy your own sweeper, I'm not going to do that. We have trouble getting all our streets swept as it is. But you know, we're willing to help, but we don't want to be abused. We do have one of the things we do have. We early on, I bought a rubber tire roller for our surface treatment program because nobody had one, and that's been a big help. And I let all the towns and villages use that during this time of the year when everybody's doing their oiling and shipping. That's I think that's been one of those items that normally the average town or village may not have.
So Gary, anything you need to add to the list that y'all do up in Windham?
Yeah, I mean, mainly echo a lot what the county level guys are saying. Greene County as well is very, very kind to us in many different ways. Tree cutting, absolutely, and we do, right? We don't keep score, and I think we all agree that taxpayer money is taxpayer money. One thing that I've seen throughout my career is just to be cautious not to spend too much time in one town or village or county, you know what I mean? We're in the public eye. People, if they pay taxes in Windham and they see Windham guys, say in Ashland every day for 3 months, you know, you're going to be subject to a little scrutiny on that. But overall, I think it's a great thing that we all work together the way that we do. One thing that I did trip upon that may not come up often is mechanical abilities. We've been in a couple situations where we have a lot of talent here in our shop, but it was a repair that we hadn't seen before, or a situation in our next door town, the town of Durham highway superintendent came up and got us out of a jam. He's got great mechanical skills, had experience with the problem we were having. Came up during a snowstorm, laid on his back, and got soaking wet and got us back under motion again. So, right, you may have someone with a typical skill in a neighboring town that you may need to lean on for a shared service.
Mm-hmm.
Rich?
I just wish our county commissioner was as willing to help as Skip and Tim. We really have no relationship, the towns with our county, but which is sad. But what we do have is no one mentioned is we work, of course, with other town departments also, where our sewer and parks are separate departments, and we do a lot of work for them also. I know some towns don't even share between departments.
Well, how about the state, Rob?
Hey, David, you know, most everything was mentioned already, but herbicide application is something that we've done through shared services agreements on the local side. And really the training component, you know, I know that was mentioned to some degree, but we do a lot of training, whether it's chainsaw training. We partner with line clearance training. We partner with herbicide applicator training, and also snow and ice training. You know, whether it's calibration or just snow and ice operations in general. We do a lot on the training side. But I think the biggest thing that we use our shared services agreements for is for emergency standby. You know, it's just to have a generic shared services agreement in place so that when something comes up in the middle of the night, we can immediately respond. Because without a shared services agreement, we cannot leave the state system. It's illegal for us to be on the local system. So having that generic agreement in place allows us to immediately respond and perform whatever service is needed.
Always got to know those rules. Yeah.
I would just add to that, if you have a FEMA emergency and you don't have the agreements in place, you may not get reimbursed. So that's very important. We always sign the agreement with the DOT.
One thing I didn't hear anybody mention that we did when I was with Yates County is we shared technical services. Tim and Skip, do you do that at all, where you provide them with either engineering support or surveying support in return for transfer of trucks or equipment?
We we have a full-time survey crew, and any town or village that is in need of finding the right-of-way limits or whatever they would want, we make them available to them. It's been something we've been doing for probably about 10 years now, and they're very appreciative of it.
We don't have a real robust engineering department. It's basically myself and Laura Wadhams that do the project management from the federal aid stuff. But we have 2 engineering techs for the county that spend a lot of their time doing layout for our jobs on bridges and ditching. One of our engineering techs does do a lot of the T marking on the pavement markings for the towns and kind of coordinates their striping. So we do help them in that respect. But one of our towns, town of Batavia, has a pretty robust engineering department, and they do a lot of shared services with neighboring towns. They do a lot of project management and actually administer grants and stuff for other towns. So the county's not doing it, there is one of our higher populated towns is doing it.
Well, again, I was trying to come up with ideas of ways to share. If you've got that specialty person, whether it's a mechanic or a bucket truck or an engineer, yeah, there's all kinds of ways we can transfer. And as long as
we do. We have we have a fairly large engineering staff here, but Joe Pazowski, who's our bridge engineer, he helps out all the towns and villages on their bridge needs and works with them. We work with them on any of our pass-through projects and or anything that they have coming. Joe pretty much is the lead man for them, and it's been well appreciated by all our local municipalities.
Cool. Okay, so here's one that I know some people are interested in. I certainly am. And how has COVID changed, for good or bad, how you share? And what do you plan to do now and in the future because of COVID? What has changed?
Ooh. Well, you want me to start first there, Dave?
Sure, what the heck?
Well, actually, it initially we were required to reduce, how many people we had by 50%, I think it was. So there was a county policy. All the departments had to put people on a bi-weekly schedule. So we broke our department down into essential and non-essential employees. Of course, most of them were essential, and then half of them worked 1 week. The other half would work the other week. And in order to even disperse them even a little more, we were able to, because we have multiple facilities, we spread them out through the facilities. So we've been very lucky since this started. We haven't had one case of COVID, even though this is a hot spot down here. I have to say it's one of the heaviest in the state. We did not have one case of COVID in affecting our department. For the last month now, we've been back to a full staff, all everybody reporting to work. We still have split them up approximately 30% are up in our smaller facility up in Stony Point. The rest are down here. But we practice, best practices here. Everybody has a temperature taken coming in. You have to wear a mask coming and going. Once you get to your workstation, you're able to take it off or you maintain 6-foot distance. The guys on the road, it's been a little difficult with them sometimes because some fellas don't want to wear a mask, but we told them it's policy. You have to wear it. You don't want to wear it, go home, unless you're out there and you're able to keep the distance. But actually, everybody's been very good. I'm more than surprised, quite frankly. But I think they're more afraid of the COVID than they are of me. So that helps. And the county's been very supportive in giving us everything we need as far as. In some of the cases, like where you come in here in the reception area, we had to put up some plexiglass so that keep the public away from our people. And But other than that, it's worked out pretty well. And we found that down here, because of the volume of traffic we had, we're actually ahead of schedule. It's stunning. All our road markings or line striping, everything. We were out there. We probably had 2 months with almost nobody on the roads, and our guy said this is great. So that was the one benefit of it.
Okay. Rob, what's the state changed because of COVID?
Well, David, from a planning perspective, we're really nervous about what COVID is going to mean to us this coming snow and ice season. Skip notes some incredibly successful experience down in Rockland County. Our experience in the lower Hudson Valley was not as good this spring, early on in the COVID experience. We lost some entire facilities for a short period of time. So our fear is, what would that mean if we're into a snow and ice scenario? How do we take care of our roadways? How do we get staff in there? And at the same time, because we're committed to helping the municipalities as well when they're needed, what's going to happen if and when a municipality loses an entire shop? So I think shared services agreements is something that we're really looking at to make sure that any municipality that does not have a shared service agreement signed, we're going to be pushing for them to do so. There's going to be a concerted effort here in the next couple of months where our assistant commissioners are going to be going out and reaching out to all the municipalities that don't have a shared services agreement in place to really work on that to see if we can do it. Because I hope they're not needed, but we need to be prepared in case they are.
Like they didn't play the Marlins baseball game last night because of COVID. So yeah. Okay, Rich, what about in Sullivan County?
So far, I don't know anybody that works for a highway department that was ill. So we're fortunate there. And I'm just with Rob. I've been thinking about it the last few days about if there's not a vaccine or some resolution to this, what we're going to do in the wintertime. That would be my main concern. I don't know if we go back to 1 week on, 1 week off for the winter, but eventually they come together because they'll all be here working, and it's a little hard to keep everybody separated. So that's my only real concern, and I haven't really come up with a good answer yet.
So have you talked to your fellow towns about maybe doing what Gary talked about earlier with those big storms, is helping each other out just in case?
Well, that's what the kind of discussion we're going to have. I've been thinking, we're going to have because, that when it first started, we were still, it was the end of winter. We were off. We took 3 weeks off completely because of that, because I didn't want to be in the position of not having enough guys to plow. So, and we did have one storm in that 3 weeks where we did work for 2 days. So yeah, it could be a real issue for snowplow. So we're going to have those discussions.
Andrew, what about the village?
We were able to continue our operations, kind of doing sort of obviously just like everyone else, the stuff that had to get done. And like a lot of people have already said, my main thing, especially, we did get snow after everything kind of started, was how are we going to maintain that and be able to maintain that. And unfortunately, I had a bit of a battle with the mayor and the board. They were looking at it in a way of sort of, why are these guys, why are they off? Why, we're paying them. And my point was, if the department becomes infected, then nothing's happening. And that took a while to get across, which was frustrating. The idea that it was all out of precaution. And I think it worked, and we're still on, everybody's back every day, but I stagger when they start to kind of keep people away from each other. I don't have a huge crew. It's 9 or 10 people. But if I split them, unfortunately, us supervisors are put in a position of saying, all right, how many, if it happens, and hopefully it doesn't, but how many people can I lose and still continue the operations that have to get done? We did pave earlier than I've ever paved before. Paving companies were hungry, and like I think Skip said, the traffic volume was so low, it was ideal. So that was good. But going forward, it'll be interesting. It'll in terms of shared services, some of that kind of slowed down. I think everybody's a little wary of mixing their crews together and adding more people as opposed to trying to keep it less. So but if anybody needed anything, we would be there for them.
Tim, what about over in your area? Change in shared services due to COVID.
Well, probably the biggest impact that we've seen so far, aside from the staffing issues that everybody else has mentioned, is kind of the collateral damage to sales tax and things like that. Our county's pretty liberal with the sharing of sales tax. We've had revenue sharing agreements with the villages and the towns for as long as I can remember. I think we're one of the more generous counties in the state in that respect. But when COVID hit and people stopped shopping and eating out and things like that, the sales tax revenue for our county, and I'm sure it's the same for everybody, dropped off a cliff. I think the initial, this first quarter in July, the revenue was down about 20%. So it's kind of a precautionary measure, and maybe they overreacted a little bit, but our legislature rescinded the sales tax sharing with the towns and villages until they could figure out where it was going to stabilize. And the ripple effect on that was a lot of kickback from towns and villages saying, well, goodbye to shared services. There was a couple towns that threatened dumping their snow and ice contracts that we rely on heavily for county roads. And actually, we do have one town left out of the 13 that plow for us that is refusing to plow the roads based on the fact that the county is not sharing the same level of sales tax that it used to share. So, the county is going to have to pick up that extra mileage this winter. It's really more the economic spillover from a tax revenue standpoint than it is from a staffing and shared services thing, but it all rolls together.
Okay, and Gary?
Yeah, so COVID's probably the least favorite thing that I even like to put into any conversation anymore. But that being said, we can't stop doing what people count on us to do. As far as shared services goes, we didn't stop doing anything as far as sharing, right? It was mainly getting into the early part of paving season. For the stuff that we share is primarily trucking, right, or equipment operations, which you're already one in a truck or a piece of equipment anyway. So, right, we took all the precautions, the basics, right, that everybody's doing. And my feeling is I'm not going to stop sharing anything that the town of Windham does as long as it continues to work. I really don't feel that it's fair to the people that we serve to just say, we're going to stop providing you with the level of service that we do. Let's face it, as highway workers, if we don't go, no one goes. Right? An ambulance isn't going to get down the road with a sick COVID patient if the highway department doesn't have it maintained, right? Nobody moves unless we do. So, we do take a risk, and for the most part, even our crews have assumed that risk, right? With the proper precautions, as long as we provide the right stuff and take the right steps, it's no different than any other safety measure that we practice, whether it be running a chainsaw or snowplow or anything like that. There's safety precautions, and we as highway officials and employees take risks every day. We're out when it's dangerous, and as long as we keep a good grip on things and continue to try to be safe, I'm not going to change anything as far as shared services goes or or what level of service that we provide to the people that we serve.
Well, a question that had come in just before we got started into our inbox and email, which is related to this. Have any of you heard of town boards or village boards or county boards asking you to stop sharing services beyond the issue you raised, Tim? The concern is, you know, being asked to stop sharing services when we've gotten in that habit. Has anybody heard that happening in your area?
Not here.
No,
Anybody?
we haven't had any of that.
Okay.
No, nothing in my region either, David.
Okay. Rob, have you heard any of that with people stopping shared service agreements at the state?
No, David, I haven't heard any talk of that. I mean, obviously there's concerns with cross-contamination and things, but as long as we're all following proper protocols, you know, as Gary expertly stated, we got to keep the roads open. We got to do the people's work.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if anything, you know, people. I always laugh when there's like a new trustee race or town board race. They say, "Oh, we got to share services. We got to do this or that." And meanwhile, you know, if someone asked myself or the town highway superintendent, you know, that's why I have that list. You bring that out and say, "Yeah, this is what we're doing already," and they had no idea. People have no idea. And I think, and I'd like it that way. I'd like to keep it that way, that we just get the stuff done, because if it goes up more levels than that, then it does start to fall apart, unfortunately.
Okay. So the last question that we sent out ahead of time, I think we've covered it, but just again, what specialized equipment and services do you share that you haven't mentioned already? Anything?
David, Greene County, again, the county highway provides the towns within our county with a lowboy service as far as moving equipment goes. And speaking for the town of Windham, every time they come to do something for us, it's at least a $550 savings. And then also the closest building to us at the county level, they'll loan us out a small double drum roller. You know, so that's $2,500 a month right there. So Big Brother, as I call them, Greene County Highway, being good to us, our towns in our county, saves our local municipalities a lot of money just by helping out with that stuff.
In the village, like I mentioned, we have the leak detection equipment, which is helpful. We also, again, the small paver. When we bought a new leaf machine, vacuum, we actually kept the old one because I was looking at what they sell for, and it was actually worth it to keep it. So that's available if, say, the town's machine goes down, or the village of Ballston Spa in Saratoga County, theirs had a catastrophic failure, so it was available, which has been nice to be able to, to offer that.
Rich, Skip, Tim, Rob, anything specific to add?
No, I think I've mentioned everything.
Okay.
I can't think of anything. Although mentioning the lowboy, most of the towns and villages don't have them, and we do. And so if they have a truck or a piece of equipment that has to be brought to a dealership or a repair place, we haul for them, you know, maybe on a weekly basis for somebody. So we're always doing that too. So
Yeah, same in here in Genesee. We have the lowboy as well.
Rob?
One thing I could add too, we actually have, it was interesting, COVID related, we have a portable bathroom trailer that we use at a concert venue we have, and the county ended up, which didn't happen this year, so the county ended up borrowing that for their to use at their testing centers, which was, again, it was just one of the things that word got around that we had it, and it became a popular thing to use, as long as it's cleaned. Well, very well.
Rob, anything specific you can think of the state does that we haven't talked about yet?
Nothing else that hasn't been mentioned. You know, when I think of these shared services agreements, I mean, moreover, it is the specialized services that we're sharing. You know, it's the things that we don't have the ability to properly equip or staff ourselves. You know, whether it's an herbicide truck, post pounder, you know, a vacuum sweeper, catch vac. You know, a lot of those specialized piece of equipments and services that smaller municipalities can't afford, and quite frankly, DOT can't afford in many instances. You know, we find ourselves performing basic services for many municipalities in order to use their specialized equipment. So it certainly goes both ways for us.
Okay. Well, that's the question I have. We don't have anything in the question and answer pod. Anything else you want to say for the good of the order? Any of you?
David, I just like to kind of finish up by saying that my belief in shared services is nothing new to our industry as well as other industries such as farming years ago. I think that's how it all got started, and then the highway world picked it up. I certainly, it makes me feel good, and I'm certainly proud to share a service. And again, I'm thankful for the day that it pays me back. So any chance I get to help another township or county, I tell them, don't ask, just tell me what you need, and we always make it happen. So I just think it's the best thing to do is to maintain relationships or build them, and just be there for each other. It's worked for years. It's going to work forever as long as we keep it in place.
Okay.
Only thing I would add is I wish our residents knew more about how much we did. You know, we always take it on the chin for being poor stewards of the tax dollars, but shared services is really the way to go and provides the best bang for the buck for all taxpayers at all levels. And most people don't realize that we've been doing it for as long as we have been, and we do it as much as we are. And
we probably need to
get that word out.
We need to market that better. Some folks over at the university over in a different department asked all the town supervisors what percentage of you shared services at the highway level, and the supervisors said 75%. My estimate is probably 95% plus, unless y'all disagree.
Yeah.
So we probably need to market that a little better.
And I think too that it's a matter of education. You know, again, shared services, it's a good description of it but it is sort of like a buzzword type thing. It's easy to say. It's easy to just throw out there to do it. You know, one of a local highway local town supervisor said we should just be sharing, for instance, plow trucks, and you know, that's just nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. And like Rob said from DOT, you know, the ones that do make sense are the specialized things, because there's certain pieces of equipment that we're all going to use all at the same time. Those are not the ones to share. It's the stuff that, and not even just the equipment, but the people too, the specialized things, you know, so that we all don't have to have a bucket truck, or we all don't have to have a road mower or whatever it is. That's how we can really save money. It's not sharing plow trucks.
Well, the two places we see it the most are specialized things, whatever they might be, or when you need a large quantity like trucks. You know, when you're chip sealing, you can't have too many trucks. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. This will be put onto our recording on our information highway page on our website for those who weren't able to join us today. You know, we're always looking. We do have our August schedule of webinars. We're going to be doing the first 3 weeks of August. Culverts, guide rail, and gravel roads are the 3 topics. Then we're going to take a break for a couple of weeks into the month and Labor Day, knowing you guys are all out there trying to, together, get everything done and buttoned up, hopefully early this year. But we're also hearing some folks are behind schedule too. So I think you're lucky, Skip, but there are others who are behind. So hopefully the weather will stay. So with that, I want to thank everybody, and y'all have yourself a great day and stay well, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good summer.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David.